Who let her in? Dr. Douglas Whitcomb stopped mid-stride. His polished loafers squeaked against the marble floor of MIT's Kredge Auditorium. 400 people turned their heads. A 14-year-old black girl stood near the registration table. Amara Jenkins. Thin frame. Box braids pulled back with a rubber band. A second-hand denim jacket 2 sizes too big. And in her arms, a device that looked like it had been pulled from a dumpster, because it had. Whitcomb walked toward her, slow, deliberate. He was a tall man, 63, silver hair swept back, jaw like a shelf. He had founded the National Young Innovators Challenge 26 years ago. His name was on the banner. His face was on the program. His rules governed everything that happened inside this building. He stopped 3 feet from Amara, looked at the device in her arms. Wires, salvaged circuit boards, a cracked solar panel held together with electrical tape, a housing made from a repurposed coffee can. "What?" he said, loud enough for the front 5 rows to hear. "Is that supposed to be?" Amara's voice was quiet, steady. "My entry, sir. It's a water purification system." "A water purification system." Whitcomb repeated it like she'd said something obscene. He turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have 48 of the brightest young minds in America here today. Students from Phillips Academy, Choate, Exeter, and apparently," he gestured at her device, "the junkyard." Laughter. Not all of it, but enough. Amara didn't flinch. She held the device tighter against her chest. "I'm registered, sir. Entry number 317. I don't care if you entry number 1. This competition has standards." He leaned closer. His voice dropped, but not enough. "Go home, sweetheart. Build a volcano for your school fair. Leave the real science to people who can afford it." Amara looked at him. 14 years old, 5'2", holding a coffee can full of wires, and she said, "No, sir. Let me tell you how she got here." Amara Jenkins lived with her grandfather, Isaiah Jenkins, in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a public housing complex in East Baltimore. The elevator had been broken since 2019. The hallway smelled like bleach, and something underneath the bleach that the bleach couldn't fix. Isaiah was 74 years old, retired electrician, bad knees, worse lungs. He had raised Amara since she was 3, when her mother was killed by a stray bullet while walking home from a night shift at a packaging plant. Her father had left before she was born. Isaiah never talked about him, and Amara never asked. Every morning Isaiah woke at 5. He made oatmeal. He ironed Amara's school uniform, even though the creases would vanish by second period. And every morning he said the same thing. "You got a mind like a power line, baby girl. Don't let nobody cut the current." The mind, that was the thing. Amara didn't learn the way other kids learned. She didn't memorize facts. She saw systems, connections, how things fit together. At 7, she took apart the apartment's broken radiator and reassembled it with parts from a busted alarm clock. It worked. At 9, she rewired the building's intercom system after the landlord refused to fix it. The whole building got working buzzers for the first time in 6 years. At 11, she built a small wind turbine from a bicycle wheel and a car alternator she found at a scrapyard. It powered a lamp in her bedroom. Not much, but enough. She taught herself from the internet. YouTube tutorials, MIT OpenCourseWare, Khan Academy. She read engineering papers on her school's one working computer during lunch. She filled notebooks with circuit diagrams and thermodynamic calculations, the way other girls filled journals with poems. But none of that shows up on a resume when you come from East Baltimore. None of it matters when your school doesn't have a science lab, when your zip code tells the world everything it wants to know about you. The competition, the National Young Innovators Challenge, $50,000 first prize, plus a full scholarship to any engineering program in the country. Amara had found it online 8 months ago. The registration fee was $75. Isaiah had picked up odd jobs for 2 months to earn it. Rewiring a neighbor's kitchen. Fixing a church's sound system. His hands shook now, the nerves going bad, but he worked anyway. "You win that money," he told her, "and you go to college. Real college. Not the kind where they put you in debt for 40 years. Amara had built her entry from nothing, literally nothing. salvaged circuit boards from a recycling center, a cracked solar panel she found behind an electronics repair shop, copper tubing from a demolished building 2 blocks away, activated carbon she made herself by burning coconut shells in a sealed tin can. The housing was a coffee can. The total cost of materials, $11.37, but the device worked. She had tested it 200 times, poured dirty water in the top. Clean water came out the bottom. Not just clean, lab quality pure. She had begged a chemistry teacher at a nearby high school to test it. The teacher, skeptical at first, had run the analysis 3 times. Each time the results were the same. The water exceeded EPA standards, a solar-powered zero-electricity water purifier built from garbage. That was Amara's entry, and now she stood in MIT's Krej auditorium, holding it against her chest while a man in a $3,000 suit told her to go home. Whitcomb turned to the registration desk. A graduate student named Rachel sat behind a laptop, looking uncomfortable. "Pull up entry 317. Rachel typed, "Amara Jenkins, Baltimore, Maryland. Public school student. Registration complete. Fee paid. All documentation submitted. Documentation." Whitcomb almost spat the word. "Is there a teacher recommendation?" "Yes, sir. From her school's general science teacher, general science." He said it like it was a disease. "Not AP physics? Not a department head." "Her school doesn't offer AP physics, sir." "Then she's not qualified." Rachel hesitated. "Professor, the rules don't require AP courses. They require a working prototype and a written explanation. She has both." Whitcomb stared at Rachel. Rachel didn't look away. She was in her 3rd year of a PhD program. She knew the rules because she had helped write them. "Fine." Whitcomb's voice was ice. "Provisional entry. She demonstrates her device first. If it fails to meet basic standards, she's out." He looked at Amara, and she sets up in the back, away from the real competitors. Amara carried her device to the far corner of the exhibition hall. Table 48, last row, behind a pillar. You'd have to be looking for it to find it. She didn't complain. She set up her station, coffee can, solar panel, copper tubing, a handwritten poster on cardboard because she couldn't afford foam board. Spencer Aldrich walked past her table. 17, blonde, jaw like his father's, who sat on MIT's board of trustees. Spencer's project was a drone guidance system built with parts that cost $12,000. His display had a 4K screen, professional graphics, LED lighting. His school had hired a design firm for the poster. He glanced at Amara's setup. Then at her. "Is that a science project or a pipe bomb?" His friends laughed. Amara arranged her copper tubing. She didn't look up. "Hey." Spencer leaned closer. "I'm talking to you. I heard you." Amara's hands were steady. "I'm just not interested." Spencer's smile vanished. He walked away, but he looked back twice, the demonstration. Whitcomb had arranged it so Amara would go first, in front of all 48 competitors, in front of the judges, in front of the cameras that live-streamed to 200,000 viewers. "Entry 317, Whitcomb announced. "Please demonstrate your device." He said device, the way someone says rash. Amara carried her coffee can to the center stage. She placed it on the table. Under the lights, it looked even more battered. The electrical tape, the scratched solar panel, the hand-soldered connections that she'd done with Isaiah's old iron, the one that sometimes sparked. She had brought a bottle of water from the harbor. Brown, murky. It smelled like oil and rot. "This is unfiltered water from the Baltimore Inner Harbor," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "It contains heavy metals, petroleum residue, bacteria, and sediment." She poured it into the top of her device. Whitcomb crossed his arms. Spencer Aldrich smirked from the 3rd row. The device hummed. The solar panel caught the stage lights. A faint whirring sound came from inside the coffee can. Water began to drip from the bottom tube into a glass beaker. Clear, completely clear, but that wasn't enough. Whitcomb had prepared for this. "Interesting parlor trick," he said. "But how do we know it's actually clean? A charcoal filter can make water look clear. That doesn't mean it's safe. Test it." Amara pushed the beaker toward him. "I brought testing strips. Or you can use the lab upstairs." Whitcomb smiled. He had anticipated this. He turned to Doctor. Yuki Nakamura, a visiting judge from Stanford, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Dr. Nakamura, would you mind running a proper analysis? Since our young inventor seems confident. Nakamura took the beaker. She studied the water, held it to the light, smelled it. Then she carried it to a portable testing station that had been set up for the competition. The room waited. Amara stood alone on stage. She could hear whispers, "There's no way! A coffee can? Come on! I feel bad for her. She's going to be humiliated." 5 minutes passed. Nakamura looked up from the testing station. Her face was strange, not confused, not skeptical. Something else. "Run it again," she said to her assistant. Another 5 minutes. Nakamura walked back to center stage. She held a printout. Her hands were steady, but her voice had an edge. "The water is clean." She paused. "Not just clean. It tests below detectable limits for lead, mercury, petroleum compounds, and coliform bacteria. This water is cleaner than what comes out of most taps in this country." Murmurs. Loud ones. Whitcomb took the printout. Read it again." "The testing equipment could be miscalibrated," he said. "I calibrated it myself this morning," Nakamura replied. "And I ran it twice." Whitcomb looked at Amara, then at the coffee can, then back at the printout. His jaw worked, but no words came out. "How?" he finally said. "How is this possible? Activated carbon alone can't remove heavy metals to this degree. You'd need reverse osmosis. Ion exchange. Equipment that costs thousands of dollars." Amara took a breath. "I didn't use just activated carbon." She turned the coffee can around, pointed to a small chamber hidden behind the main filter. "I built a bioelectric membrane. Layers of graphene oxide extracted from pencil sandwiched between copper mesh. When the solar panel generates current, the membrane creates an electric field that repels charged contaminants, heavy metals, dissolved salts, even some organic compounds." She pointed to each layer as she spoke. "The activated carbon handles the large particles and bacteria. The bioelectric membrane handles everything else. Together, they do what a $10,000 reverse osmosis system does." She looked at Whitcomb. "For $11, silence." Dr. Nakamura took a step closer to the device. "You built a bioelectric membrane? From pencil graphite?" "Yes, ma'am. I followed a paper from the Journal of Membrane Science, published in 2019. The researchers used a $50,000 lab setup. I figured out how to do it with sandpaper, pencil lead, and a 9-volt battery." Nakamura stared at her. "That paper took a team of 6 PhD researchers 2 years. "I know. I read it 14 times. Nakamura turned to Whitcomb. Her expression had changed. She wasn't impressed. She was angry. Angry that this girl had been put in the back corner. Angry that she was standing on stage being treated like a sideshow. "Douglas," she said, "this is one of the most innovative pieces of engineering I've seen at this competition in a decade, and you put her behind a pillar." Whitcomb said nothing. His face was a mask. The competition continued, but something had shifted. People kept wandering to table 48. Students, parents, reporters. They wanted to see the coffee can up close. They wanted to ask Amara questions. Spencer Aldrich's drone guidance system won polite applause during his demonstration. Professional, impressive. But everyone had seen drone guidance systems before. Nobody had seen a coffee can that could purify harbor water. The judges deliberated. 4 hours, the longest deliberation in the competition's history. What happened behind those doors, only the judges knew. But here's what leaked out later. Whitcomb argued against Amara. "The device is crude, unrefined. It looks like it was built in a garage." Dr. Cynthia Mabry, the dean of MIT's engineering department, a black woman in her late 50s who had been quiet all day, finally spoke. "Douglas, we're judging innovation, not aesthetics. We're judging readiness. Does this girl look ready for a $50,000 scholarship? She can barely afford poster board. That's exactly why she needs the scholarship." Whitcomb tried a different angle. "Her theoretical basis is questionable. Bioelectric membranes are still experimental. There's no peer-reviewed proof that her design works at scale." Dr. Nakamura leaned forward. "She just demonstrated it in front of 400 people. It works. The water is clean. What more proof do you need? I need proof that it wasn't a fluke. One demonstration doesn't constitute, then test it again. Nakamura's patience was gone. Test it 10 times. Test it 100 times. The science doesn't change because you don't like who's holding the beaker. 3 judges voted for Amara. 1 voted for Spencer. Whitcomb abstained. Then he played his final card. He pulled up the competition bylaws on his laptop. Section 12, paragraph 4. All entries must include certification from an accredited STEM instructor. Certification must be signed by a faculty member holding at minimum a master's degree in a relevant scientific discipline. He looked up. Miss Jenkins's recommendation came from a general science teacher, not a STEM certified instructor, not a master's degree holder. He closed the laptop. Her entry is disqualified. The room went cold. Dr. Mabry stared at him. You can't be serious. Rules are rules, Cynthia. I wrote them to maintain standards. If we start making exceptions, you wrote that rule in 2003 to keep homeschooled students out of the competition. We all know that. Regardless of its origin, it's in the bylaws. Her certification is invalid. Amara wasn't in the room. She was outside in the hallway, sitting on the floor, her back against the wall. She had eaten half a granola bar. The other half she was saving for later because she didn't have money for the cafeteria. Her phone buzzed. A text from Isaiah. How's my power line doing? Her fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to tell him everything. The humiliation, the test results. The way Nakamura had looked at her device like it was something precious. The way Whitcomb had looked at her like she was something to be scraped off his shoe. She typed, "Still in it, Grandpa. Pray for me." She hit send. The screen dimmed. 7% battery. She pressed the phone against her forehead and closed her eyes. A door opened. Dr. Mabry stepped into the hallway. She looked at Amara on the floor. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mabry sat down next to her right there on the floor. A dean of MIT in a pressed suit, sitting on cold linoleum. How old were you when you built your first thing? Mabry asked. Amara thought. 7. I fixed our radiator. I was 8. Rebuilt a radio from my uncle's shop. Everybody said girls don't do electronics. Mabry looked at her. That was 1974, 50 years ago. You'd think things would be different by now. Amara said nothing. Mabry reached into her bag, pulled out a bottle of water and a sandwich wrapped in foil. Eat. You're going to need it. Why? Because this isn't over yet. Mabry stood up, brushed off her suit, walked back into the deliberation room. Amara unwrapped the sandwich, turkey and Swiss. She ate it in 4 bites and didn't realize until the last one that she was crying. Inside the deliberation room, Mabry dropped a folder on the table. What's this? Whitcomb asked. Section 12, paragraph 4, subsection B, the appeals clause. I filed it 20 minutes ago. She opened the folder. When a certification is contested, the competition committee may grant provisional acceptance if the contestant demonstrates competency equivalent to or exceeding the standard during live evaluation. She turned to the other judges. Dr. Nakamura tested the water herself. Twice. The device works. The science is sound. The girl just demonstrated engineering competency that exceeds most undergraduates in this building. That satisfies the appeals clause. Whitcomb's face reddened. You're manipulating the process. I'm using the process, Douglas. The one you built. She sat down. Now, shall we vote again? They voted. Amara stayed in. But Whitcomb wasn't done. He walked to the stage, picked up a microphone. 400 people looked up. Before we announce our winner, he said, I'd like to propose one final challenge. Murmurs. This year's competition has been exceptional. But true innovation isn't just about building a device. It's about solving problems under pressure, real-world problems, unexpected problems. He pressed a button. The main screen lit up. An equation appeared. Dense, complex. Below it, a diagram of a filtration system with a fundamental design flaw. This is a real engineering challenge currently facing the Department of Energy. A solar-powered desalination system designed for coastal disaster relief. The prototype works in the lab but fails in the field. No one has figured out why. He looked at the finalists. Whoever identifies the flaw and proposes a viable solution wins the competition. You have 30 minutes. Dr. Nakamura stood up. Douglas, this wasn't in the program. Consider it a bonus round. Optional, of course. He smiled at Amara. Anyone who feels overwhelmed is free to step aside. The trap was obvious. This was a professional-grade engineering problem. It had stumped teams at national laboratories, and Whitcomb was throwing it at teenagers with 30 minutes. Spencer Aldrich cracked his knuckles. He had 3 tutors who worked at the DOE. He'd seen problems like this before. 2 of the other finalists withdrew immediately. A third lasted 5 minutes before walking off stage. That left Spencer and Amara. Spencer dove in. His whiteboard filled with calculations, fluid dynamics equations, thermal transfer coefficients. He worked fast, confident, his prep school training on full display. Amara stared at the screen, the diagram, the numbers. Something was wrong, but not where everyone was looking. She didn't move for 2 full minutes. Spencer glanced over, smirked. Need a calculator? Oh wait, you probably can't afford one. Amara didn't hear him. She was somewhere else. She was in her grandfather's apartment, 6 months ago. A Saturday morning. Isaiah had been trying to fix the building's water heater. The pilot light kept dying. He'd replaced every part, checked every connection. Nothing worked. Amara had watched him for an hour. Then she'd said, "Grandpa, what if it's not the heater? What if it's the vent?" Isaiah had looked at her, looked at the vent. A small piece of debris was blocking airflow, causing the flame to starve. He'd cleared it in 10 seconds. The heater worked perfectly. The problem wasn't where everyone was looking. It was upstream. Amara picked up her marker. She didn't touch the desalination equations. Instead, she circled a small component in the diagram that everyone else had ignored, the intake valve. The system doesn't fail because of the desalination process, she said. Her voice was quiet, but the microphone caught it. It fails because of what happens before the water reaches the membrane. She drew a simple diagram next to Whitcomb's complex one. In field conditions, coastal water carries micro-debris, sand, shell fragments, organic matter. In the lab, they use pre-filtered water. In the field, they don't. She tapped the intake valve. This valve has no pre-filtration stage. Debris accumulates on the membrane surface. Within 72 hours, the membrane is clogged. Efficiency drops to 0. She drew a small addition to the diagram. A simple mesh filter before the intake valve. Add a graduated pre-filter here. 3 layers, coarse, medium, fine. Total cost, about $4. The debris never reaches the membrane. System runs indefinitely. She put down the marker. That's the flaw. And that's the fix. Silence. Long, deep silence. Spencer's whiteboard was covered with equations. Brilliant equations. Correct equations. But he had been solving the wrong problem. He had been optimizing the desalination process when the failure had nothing to do with desalination at all. Dr. Nakamura walked to the stage. She studied Amara's diagram. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. She spoke quietly for 2 minutes. Then she hung up. I just spoke with Dr. Terrence Huang at Sandia National Laboratories. He's been leading the desalination project for 3 years. She looked at the audience. He confirmed that field tests consistently show membrane degradation within 72 hours. His team has been focused on improving membrane durability. Not one person considered that the problem was pre-filtration. She looked at Amara. How did you see that? Amara shrugged. Sometimes the problem isn't the problem. Sometimes it's the thing right before the problem. Nakamura nodded slowly. Simple, elegant, and correct. She turned to Whitcomb. Douglas, your challenge is solved. Whitcomb stood motionless. His hands gripped the podium. His knuckles were white. The audience erupted. 400 people on their feet, clapping, shouting, some of them crying. The live stream had hit 300,000 viewers. The chat was a blur. She did it. Poor fix for a 2 million problem. Coffee can girl, legend. Whitcomb's face I can't breathe past. Spencer Aldrich sat at his whiteboard. His equations stared back at him. Perfect. Useless. His father, 6 rows back, was already on his phone, probably calling a lawyer, probably calling the board, probably doing what men like him always did when the world didn't bend their way. But the world had bent, just not toward him. Dr. Mabry stood up. She didn't need to call for silence. The room quieted on its own. Everyone knew what was coming. The committee has reached its decision. Her voice was steady, strong. The winner of the 26th National Young Innovators Challenge is Amara Jenkins of Baltimore, Maryland. The room exploded again. Whitcomb didn't move. He stood at the podium like a man watching his house burn down. 26 years he had run this competition. 26 years of polished entries from polished schools, and now a girl with a coffee can had rewritten the story. He walked to the microphone. Each step cost him something, you could see it. The committee recognizes. He stopped, swallowed, started, again. The committee recognizes Amara Jenkins as this year's winner. Her water purification device demonstrates, another pause, exceptional innovation. He couldn't say more, he didn't need to. The audience said it for him. But there was one more moment, one that the cameras almost missed. Backstage, Dr. Mabry found Amara. The girl was sitting in a folding chair, holding the $50,000 check with both hands, staring at it like it might disappear. "There's something else," Mabry said. She sat down across from her. "I made some calls this morning." Amara looked up. "Your grandfather's medical bills, the prescriptions he can't afford, the specialist appointments he's been skipping." Amara's face changed. She hadn't told anyone about that. Isaiah had made her promise not to. "How did you?" "I grew up in West Baltimore, Amara. I know what it looks like when someone's holding a family together with tape and prayers." Mabry handed her a letter. "A foundation has agreed to cover his medical care. All of it, for as long as he needs it." The check slipped from Amara's fingers. It floated to the ground. She didn't pick it up. She couldn't. Her hands were over her mouth and she was shaking. "You earned this," Mabry said. "Every bit of it. Don't let anyone tell you different." The tears came, silent at first, then not. A door opened behind them, a voice thin and rough and impossibly familiar. "Baby girl?" Amara spun around. Isaiah Jenkins stood in the doorway, 74 years old, bad knees, worse lungs, wearing his church suit, the brown one with the wide lapels that he'd had since 1987. Mabry had sent a car for him, a 4-hour drive from Baltimore. He was crying before she reached him. Amara buried her face in his chest. He smelled like Old Spice and peppermint and home. His arms wrapped around her, the same arms that had held her since she was 3 years old, since the day the world took her mother, and he decided the world wouldn't take anything else. "You did it," he whispered. "Your mama's up there right now, baby girl, and she is so proud. I was scared, Grandpa. I know. But you stayed. That's what matters. You stayed." They held each other for a long time, a genius and an electrician, a 14-year-old girl and the old man who never let anyone cut her current. Outside, the auditorium buzzed. Reporters waited. Cameras flashed. Spencer Aldrich and his father had already left through a side door. Whitcomb sat alone in the empty judge's chamber, staring at a coffee can that had undone 26 years of everything he thought he knew about who deserved to be in that room. And on the live stream, 300,000 people watched a girl from East Baltimore hold her grandfather and cry. If you've ever walked into a room where nobody expected you to belong, if you've ever been judged by your clothes, your zip code, your skin, if someone ever looked at what you built and saw garbage instead of genius, remember this: the science doesn't care. The truth doesn't care. A $4 filter can solve what a $2 million lab couldn't. And a coffee can full of wires, held together by tape and sheer will, can change the world. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Tell me about a time somebody underestimated you. Share this with someone who's about to walk into a room where nobody believes in them. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Dale Stories. Because every week, we find the people the world overlooked, and we tell you what happened when the world was wrong.